25th of 1996, and Ted and Edna Drone are going to share some questions and answers with all of us of things we've always wanted to know but forgot to ask. Dad, you want to start off with your first question?
Okay, when did you learn to play the harmonica? Well, I guess at about 8 years old. My dad played a harmonica.
I don't know that.
And he played a violin. He made his own violin.
So did he give you his harmonica, or
No.
you got your own?
Red and Jack Serco gave me an old used harmonica, and that's what I learned to play.
And that's the one you still have now?
No,
Is that on?
You gave it to Marty,
You
didn't
did.
you?
yeah, it wore out a long time. Joan and I bought one time when we lived in Ridgeway, and after we were married, and Marty wanted the one I gave it to her.
So you don't have
I
one?
used to play it at Christmas. What was that song at Christmas? You'd pull out the harmonica.
I don't
Oh,
And
remember
play
that.
some song, I can't remember.
How come I would never seen you play the harmonica?
Because he gave it to
Because
Marty.
he gave it to Marty, he doesn't have
He
it
gave up
anymore.
harmonica playing for a while.
He's on a sabbatical.
You want me to go to the next question, or Edna go to one now, or what?
Mom, why don't you alternate? Because
Okay,
as you do those, I think we'll come up with more questions that we want to know.
okay.
Get us started.
Mine is tell about your growing up years and all the extended family. Well, that gets a little complicated.
That's the reason they wanted you to tell about it.
Probably. My father had been married before, and he had 2 children from a boy and a girl from that marriage. And my mother had been married before, and her husband had died of tuberculosis. And she had a daughter, Dora May, and then she married my father,
Whose name
whose name was William Nicholas Wagner. Her name was Stella Dora, I think, Richardson Smith. Her married name was Smith. And so then I had a brother, Bill, who was born 15 or 16 months before I was. And apparently our mother had TB probably when she married my father from her first husband. That was a disease back in those days that, took a lot of people. They didn't know that much about it, how to treat it or anything. And so she died when I was about 2 1/2. And so from there, my dad and my brother, Bill, and I went to live with our grandmother in Ridgeway, Illinois. And her name was Mary E. Paul. She had been married 3 times. She had married 3 husbands, almost like in the Bible. And so we lived there until I was 4. My grandmother died. And so then my dad and my brother went back to Iowa, and they left me with Aunt Laura and Uncle Joe, who was Dad's sister. Aunt Laura was Dad's sister, over at Johnson City, Illinois. And so I went through first grade there. Well, they called it kindergarten. We started kindergarten, and they decided, I don't know if they decided we were all so smart we shouldn't be in first grade, or if they didn't know how to combine it, so anyhow they ended up calling it first grade. So I guess I went to first grade there. Uncle Joe worked in the coal mines, and he had an opportunity to get a political job. He was always a little politically minded. So he got a job as a guard at the prison at Chester, Illinois, and so then we moved, and that's how we ended up in Chester. And I went to school there in the 2nd grade, and at St. Mary's, and then when I was in the 3rd grade, Aunt Laura had become ill and needed several operations, and so they decided, since I was small, and they had one daughter who was 11 years older than I am, Mary Lou, they decided maybe I should go and stay with Aunt Mary, because Mary Lou wasn't old enough for me to stay alone with her. So we went to Iowa, and they left me up with Aunt Mary, and I went to 3rd grade up there.
And Aunt Mary is the
Is the sister to Aunt Laura and my father. Her name was Mary Spohr, and she was married to Emmett Spohr, and they lived out in the country. And what I remember about that year is going to school with all the snow on the ground because Illinois didn't have that much snow and Iowa had a tremendous amount, and you would get up and it would drift between the barn and the house and you couldn't even see the barn. And if you walked down along the gravel road after the plows went through, it looked like you were, I always thought I was in the mountains because not being too tall, it looked, you know, really monstrous to me. And so, and I went to school that year in Iowa in a little country school, 3 or 4 miles probably from the house. And I would ride with the neighbor people in a horse and buggy. And then,
And what year would that have been?
3rd grade. And
Okay.
I went to this little country school where all 8 grades were in the same classroom. And they had a great big old round, it was like a furnace that heated the building. It was in the corner of the room. And at noon hour, in the wintertime, the boys would go out on the play area and build igloos, and I just marveled at that. I thought that was out of sight, you know, because I'd never seen anything like that before. So there's several things I remember about being up there that year. So then they, Aunt Laura recuperated from her surgeries, and they came up and got me the next summer and took me, I guess, back to Illinois, yeah, and that was Chester. Oh, I'd forgotten, there was a year in there before where I had lived with Aunt Mary 1 year, before I was in school, I think. Yeah, but anyhow, went back to Chester, Illinois. And so then we lived there until I was in, well, I went all the rest of the way through grade school at St. Mary's. Then I graduated from, people want to say Mount Carmel High School, Chester High School in 46. And that's when I went to Ridgeway, Illinois in 46, because then Uncle Joe had retired, and he decided he wanted to buy the farm that his parents owned when he was growing up, and move back to the old home place, you know. Well, Aunt Laura didn't like Ridgeway, but anyhow, they moved down there, so I went down there after school was out, and then that's how I met. Is that the next question, maybe? How did Aunt Laura and Uncle Joe get to Ridgeway? Well, that's how they got to Ridgeway, was that, you know, Uncle Joe had retired and they decided to buy the farm. And so they moved down there. And how did they end up in Chester this last time? Was that in the meantime I had met your father, Ted, here. And we had gotten married, and Aunt Laura really didn't like Ridgeway at all, and she convinced Uncle Joe to go back to Chester, where their daughter lived, and build a home there and sell the farm. So that's what they did.
So
And
how old was Mary Lou whenever they, I thought she went to Ridgeway with them, and she didn't. She
Oh,
stayed,
no,
she
Mary-
was already gone from home.
she was already married and had a couple of children
Okay,
by then.
I didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Uh-huh.
Yes, he had Marcia and Jean Marie.
Yeah, and Joey, I think.
Well, and Joel never did come down to Ridgeway in the summertime with 2 girls.
Well, I was still at home when Joe was born.
Okay.
Yeah, so she had 3 children by that time. And so they went back over there and of course lived there till they died. And Mary Lou still lives over there with her husband Gene, and her family's all grown now. So I was really 17 when I moved to Ridgeway. Okay.
When you got out of school, what were you doing for jobs? Well, I shucked corn, I worked through the wheat harvest.
Was that on Grandpa's farm?
Yeah, yes.
We don't say loud, we say less.
And then I got a job working at a garage in the salvage yard, and that was my permanent job.
Dad, when you-
I worked there then until I went to the service.
When you first got out of school and you were working on the farm, did Grandpa pay you in any way so you had pocket money, or
No.
that was just your contribution to the
That was
family?
That was just a job, that was just a family job.
That was it.
How old were you, maybe I asked, when you went into the Army?
I was 22 or 23.
And that was, war had already been declared when you went in, so were you drafted?
Yes, I was.
What year did you win?
43,
And when did you get on?
45, I think.
And where did you go first? When you got drafted?
Well, we went to,
North Carolina, wasn't
You take your basic training?
well, let's start up here. It says to go through this, it says right here, you want to, okay, I went from, when I took my physical, I got to come home for 7 days, I believe it was. And then we went back to Camp Grant, and they sent us out to Fort Eustis, Virginia. And then from there, we did our, what kind of training they call that first?
Basic training, maybe?
Basic training. Then we went down to Camp Sturt, Georgia for advanced training. And then we left Camp Sturt, Georgia, and went to Blackstone, Virginia for 2 or 3 months. And then we went to Camp Edwards, Massachusetts. And then we got on the boat and went over to England.
Were you getting training at each one of those different
Yeah.
places you went?
Hmm.
So by the time you were through in Massachusetts, they thought you were trained to do what you
Well,
needed to
we
do?
just working our way up to the boat.
Oh.
What city is that in Massachusetts, Camp Edwards?
What city
Boston.
was it close to?
Boston?
Boston. And it was cold. It was February. But the nice part about it, we didn't have to do any KP up there. They already had prisoners over doing KP work.
When you went overseas, what, were you in infantry or artillery?
And aircraft.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know what all was in it. They was, on the boat we were on, there was 2 boys from Shawneetown, which is 12 miles from my hometown, and 1 boy at Carver's Ridge, that's down by Founds Hollow. And one day we were getting ready to go to lunch, and my main buddy, he said, "Did you see Henry McGee on this boat?" And I said, "Well, I saw somebody looked like him, but I wasn't sure him." He said, "I did too," so I'm sure it's him because he's got a big knob right up here on his head. And he was in engineers.
So you guys all,
So out
you
of
didn't all
thousands?
ship out at the same,
Huh?
whenever you left Ridgeway to go, did you know that there were gonna be these other guys that you already knew?
No, well, we knew because we drafted, it was 50s.
Mhm.
They was 56, I think, drafted in one bunch from that one county at one time. That was the biggest bunch ever
And you
left.
probably all knew each other because it was such a small.
No,
No, you didn't?
I knew some of them, but didn't know them very well.
Uh-huh.
So how many were on the boat? 1,000 or 100 or?
I don't know, they told, seemed like me, they were about 5,500 on the boat we were on.
That'd be amazing to find 3 people you knew in a bunch like that.
Well, it was,
So did you,
Or knew
they was 3 of them in the gun crew with, same gun crew, so.
did you just sleep in like big rooms on bunk beds or in the boat?
No, just a big open spot with hanging cots, and
like
Just-
what you wanna do is get in the top cot because the guys
Everybody
down
threw
below,
up.
guys down below may get vomited on. He's sick. So I always get the top bunk.
Still sleep in the top bunk.
Yes,
That's why.
Never got over that
I
part.
never got over that.
And then you were in the Battle of the
What
Bulge,
else-
right?
What else was on?
Showed
Yeah,
down,
he was in the
plugging
Battle of the Bulge?
Well, you did. That's far.
Well,
away,
we
but
landed in,
We need to take a time out here a minute.
We're taking an intermission
Okay,
time.
you can
Boy,
figure
We
you're
out.
don't
doing
have
a
any
Go get your
politics,
popcorn now.
but I can
In a
take
minute,
an
go
intermission.
ahead and figure out the schedule.
It's flashing
Um,
battery and I.
Okay, now we're back.
and I have to start back in, right?
Yeah, what was the
Turn on.
question?
We
He was
landed-
talking about landing.
We landed in England. We were there about 3 months. And then from England, we went down to Dorchester, England, got on a boat and went over to France.
You landed at Normandy.
Yes.
On D-Day? Or you
No,
just
no,
came in
it's-
afterward?
This was, oh, I made it probably about 20, 25, 30 days later.
How long was the ride over on the boat?
A couple hours.
Long enough.
Going where, across the channel or
Across the ocean, across the
It
Atlantic.
was about 11 days going over. Across the Atlantic, and we wasn't very long on the English Channel.
Well, for your first time away from home, you really left, didn't you?
Were you on a full carrier group when you went across? Was there a bunch of ships?
Yeah,
Did,
I
did,
think,
did any of them get
I think it was 55. We counted 55.
Hey,
did any of them get torpedoed or anything?
No.
wow.
They,
Were you kind of worried
they
about
had
that kind
different
of thing?
courses, you know, they'd run so far this way and then back, and then they'd get them whales or swells. You'd see one up there, the next time it'd be gone, you'd see one pop up over here. They
Now,
had ships all over.
Now, was that the LSTs you were on?
No,
Or
no,
just troop carriers?
this was a troop carrier.
So it wasn't the kind of thing they were building down
No,
here?
I never did see them till we landed in France. And then when we landed in France, we was on I guess maybe it was a troop ship of some kind. And then they come out with them little 30-man boats, landing crafts, I
With
guess.
the front end that, like you see in the movies,
Yeah.
front end drops down?
We crossed, climbed overboard and down a rope ladder, got those little boats and we had a duffel bag and rifle. And gas
All
masks.
your worldly possessions right there on your back, huh? Oh.
Yeah, and if you fell in the river or fell in the ocean, you go down with it.
Then those guys took us up to, they could land them almost in 6 inches of water. And they dropped that end gate down, we just run out through there and then hit the sand.
No,
Was it like they show on TV where everybody was just running
No,
running
they
for
were
cover
big
when they got
LST
off?
They weren't big LSTs, these things, we were only about a 30-man, about all they could hold was 30 men at a
No,
time.
he was 30 days later, so probably
Yeah.
what you saw when he got off was just massive material,
Yeah.
wasn't it? They were still offloading
Yeah.
for the push. I
We didn't
bet
have
you've
people
never
shoot
seen, never seen anything like that before, had you?
It ain't said, see.
So you didn't have
Don't
people
want
shooting
to,
at
huh?
You know, I keep going to now, go on back on some of this other.
Well, I see what I might have missed here when I was talking. Oh, when did you become Catholic? Well, after I came back to Chester from Iowa Falls, I of course was in the 4th grade then, and Aunt Laura decided that I was old enough by then to stay with Mary Lou if she had to go back to the hospital again. And so they went ahead and had me baptized in the Catholic faith, because that was the church that Aunt Laura and Uncle Joe went to. And the reason I wasn't Catholic before that was because my father was a divorced Catholic, which was kind of bad back in those days. And he had married my mother, who was the daughter of a Baptist minister, which made it doubly bad because there was quite a bit of prejudice in those days against people that were divorced, and with the Baptists about people that married Catholics, you know. And so anyhow, I was baptized when I was in the 4th grade. So from then on, I attended the Catholic church, and I really don't remember very much. I don't remember a thing about my mother, because at 2 1/2, I guess you just don't store that much memory. I can remember a little bit about my grandmother. I remember being there on the back porch of the house, watching her make homemade soap. I don't know why I remember that, but I can. And I can remember that while we were there, my brother gave me a haircut that he got in trouble over.
Maybe that's why you remember the whole episode.
And I guess
Don't
he,
let grandma babysit
I
anymore.
guess he really chopped me up.
We all did that.
Yeah. And Aunt Laura always said, "You do anything that Bill told you to do," and I did. I thought he was a cat's meow, you know. Oh man, and
Let me cut your hair, okay?
yeah, that's fine, doesn't matter to me at all. And I can remember that anytime Dad would go to town, when he'd come back, he always had a little bag of hard candy. Usually it was little peppermint sticks or whorehound candy, and I never did know why he liked whorehound candy. But I'd eat it, and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't my favorite. But it was my favorite in the sense that because my dad gave it to me. And so how did Aunt Lorna and Uncle Joe get to Ridgeway? I think I covered that,
Got off started.
and how they ended up in
Ask her
Chester.
your question again before you forget.
What did you do? How old were you when you
Cindy.
went to Ridgeway? I answered that.
Your dad's two children before.
Oh, uh-huh.
Who were they?
Oh, Alice, what, Alice Wagner Gruey. She married Gruey. She had no children. And then there was Willard Wagner, and I think his wife's name was Myrtle. And I think they may have had about 5 children. They're both dead now. But this was with my dad's first marriage, when he lived at Mallard, Iowa, I think it was at that time. And that's where was the home family place of the Wagners, was Mallard, Iowa. And in the cemetery, my dad is buried in the cemetery there at Mallard. And I think he had, I don't remember, but there were several, at least maybe 3 or 4 of his family buried there that had died when they were young of the typhoid epidemic, which accounted for a lot of the people being married so many times. Was that there were a lot of epidemics that went around that caused problems, you know, in families, and one of the other spouses would die, and then they would remarry and relocate, and that's how you got scattered around in so many different areas. So.
Now, who is Aunt Noni that was there at
Aunt
Mallard?
Noni was the wife of a half, I think it was a half-brother. It was from one of my grandmother's marriages. I don't remember if her last name was Sabin. And then there was a Conley in there that Grandma Paul was married to at one time, before she was married to the Wagner, I think. That might be in your, oh, I have a family thing that Bill sent me the other day that answers some of that
Okay.
in there. I'll try to get copies of that for you kids. So does that kind of answer that a little bit?
And you said your dad was divorced,
Mm-hmm.
and the 2 children were from this divorce?
Mm-hmm.
That was very unusual for a father to have the children, even, it's just today that
Well,
that's changing somehow.
No, he didn't really have the children. They were his children, but they lived with their mother.
Okay.
And but she remarried right away. And,
So, do you know why they got a divorce anyway? Was your dad a philanderer, or?
well, he could very well have been, but I think that she had met someone else that doesn't mean that he didn't too. I mean, I don't really know. I don't really know.
So how long was there between the divorce before your dad married your mom? Was he single for a long time?
Well, see, I don't know, because he went to the service and was in World War I. And so I'm assuming it probably were several years in there. And went from Germany after World War I guess Aunt Lorna and Uncle Joe had married and were living in Ridgeway, and his mother had married Pete Paul and was living in Ridgeway, and so that's how he got to Ridgeway at that time. And my mother, I think he got a job in the coal mine too, over somewhere around McLeansboro or Bend. I think it was Bend. And I think my mother was a
Johnson City.
you know,
Well, that'd
maybe
be
in
close.
that area,
Yeah.
you know, in that area. And I think my mother was a waitress in a cafe or something when they met. I'm not sure of that. And I don't know, somewhere along the line, I think Aunt Laura said she was a seamstress also, maybe, but I really don't remember anything about any of that. So.
I got started with Indiana Farm Bureau Oil Company.
Wait a minute, back up a minute. Let's go back to Germany a minute.
Yeah, you landed on the beach.
Well,
What happened?
we went to Cherbourg, France. And from Cherbourg, they got a big pocket of Germans tied in there. Then we went from Cherbourg to Nice,
Nice.
France.
Mhm.
And then I think from there we went to Belgium, Charleroi. that was General Bradley's headquarters. He pulled guard duty there for about 2-3 days, and then they just sent us on up the line. From there we went to, I guess it was Luxembourg.
And that was the Battle of the Bulge then,
Yeah.
right there.
Then after it was all over, we was stayed, it's called, not when it was over, but when during the Bulge, we were at Needle Corn and Differdinge. It was a coal mine town, and I don't know what else was there, and that's where we would go take our showers about that coal mine. Pretty sure we had them all. And
Were the people there pretty friendly to you?
they were good.
They were glad to have the support?
And we had some taken there, shots of each on. And then the Bulge come and we moved out. And then when we come back, why, they give us our pictures.
Oh, that was neat that you got to go back through there.
Did you see actual I mean, you got run over by an artillery piece or something, right?
Yeah.
Got a little broke leg.
Well, it cracked it, it didn't break it, then the captain, that we still get letter, his wife, he's dead. And they took it to a field hospital and took x-rays of it. He said it was cracked, and the captain says, I don't want him in a field hospital. So, he said, we'll take care of him here. So I stayed in the battery headquarters until I got able to go back on duty. Yeah, about then I left her, I guess, over coming home.
So you stayed with your group then? You weren't in the field hospital?
No,
You stayed there. Were you given some kind of duties that you could do, or did they let
there
you
was
just
nothing I could do, it was on the crutches.
lay around for a while until you got healed up?
Now, was that because of they thought there was a lack of protection there at the field hospitals with the balls and everything? Or, I know there was a lot of problems going on then with,
He didn't want to lose
Fluid
any of
lines.
his men. If you go there, if you get okay, they may throw you in the infantry or
just
tank battalion or fill in any place.
Yeah.
I can understand why those reunions must be such a special time now then, because I didn't realize all that, but that's like family, wasn't it? So when you all get together for reunions, you got that in common. Yeah, boy, that's a hard time.
I've been to one reunion, and I guess it was three guys out of our, well, it's more than that. There was all battalion people that were there, there wasn't too many, but there was one guy out of our battery, and one of them out of the medics was there that I knew real well. Was you drafted or enlisted? I was drafted, I was not enlisted.
You're wanting to get away from home, but you didn't want to go that far.
I didn't ask for a deferment, but I was drafted. I didn't enlist for any of that kind of government jobs.
Well, now, were your brothers too young to go at that time?
Oh, yeah,
That's-
yeah, Peanut, they went in the Corps Ridmore,
Yeah.
they was just old enough to go Peanut and the twins.
I thought they were older than you.
Oh,
No,
they're
Peanut's about 6 years younger than
Oh, I thought Peanut was
Dad,
older.
Dad's oldest.
Peanut and
I thought you were the youngest.
I'm the oldest of the boys, and these two girls, and they're older than I am. They're both
See,
deceased.
Peanut was in Korea,
Yeah, no, twins was in Korea.
The boys
too.
were,
and twins were in Korea.
So how old did you have to be to get drafted or enlisted during World War II?
16, 18?
18.
Well, I think it just started taking them at 18 when they started, when they got the cream of the crop, the older ones.
They didn't take anybody any younger than that, though. Any younger than
I don't
18.
think
No.
so. I
Not on
think
purpose.
Well, probably a lot of
There's a lot of
guys
people
enlisted
who
to go.
enlisted and were younger.
Yeah,
18,
It-
fibbed
for the
18,
adventure and whatever.
I don't think there's very many enlisted, because they knew they was gonna get to go anyway.
And
eventually.
so when you got drafted, it wasn't for a 2-year draft, it was for the duration of the
Duration.
war.
Duration plus 10 years, I think.
How did Grandma and Grandpa react? Just knew that you had to do it, or?
Yes, they just knew that I had to go.
Something you had to do back then.
Mhm.
Well, how
Well,
about,
you didn't have no buddies there, they was already all gone or getting ready to go, so.
So you stayed in Europe, you didn't go to Japan
No.
off in the.
When the war was over in Europe, they started training us on, I was on a regular 40 millimeter.
Mhm.
And then after the war was over, they started, in Europe, they started training us on, I think they call them bogey 40s. They were twin 40s.
Mhm.
And those.
Like what's on the ships?
And 50 caliber machine guns, it was, I call them quad 50s.
Mhm.
And each 40 millimeter gun crew had a quad 50 with it.
Mhm.
And so we started taking training on that, and then they finally sent us back to the United States.
and so when you came back, you were out, except for your 10-year,
Yeah. And we traveled from Fritzlau, France, or from Fritzlau, Germany, back to La Havre, France, in boxcars.
Yeah.
And they had cots set up in them. And I was going back to La Havre, France, when my birthday rolled up.
Were you on the
birthday
top
party.
bunk again here, or were you on the top bunk again, or?
No, they just had,
They just had one level.
they just had one level them. And
you've been through the war, everybody was equal then.
they'd go by and they didn't stop too often, and you'd open up that old door to urine, and one guy stood up there and he grunted there, he couldn't go. I says, let me up there, I can go. I got that door and I couldn't go either. Something about that traveling kept you going.
Kept you puckered up, huh?
So I don't, they didn't go too much when they stopped and we all bailed out when they wanted everything around there. And they give us some calisthenics and they put us back on the train. We ate someplace. And we got back on the train and started home from La Havre, France.
Quiz on the fly.
Yeah, potty break time.
But that's something go real bad and you can't go out there. Then went to La Havre, France. Seemed like me for a month. I guess we was there about a week. And all they went by points coming home. And I had, I don't know how many points I had anymore, but I had about the average. And the guys had more. They got to go on boats ahead of us, or leave your companies. And when we got to La Havre, France, we met a bunch of them there. And they got on the same boat we got on to come home on.
Party time
Got there
tonight.
sooner, they ain't leaving each other.
No, how did you get points? What were they,
So many months in service.
so many times you were there and?
And then
That
if you
was-
had,
that
you
was
had
it.
any little ones, any children, they counted so many points. This buddy of mine lives down at Carrier Mills, now we got a Christmas card from him this year. He was at Creel Springs and he's moved to Carrier Mills. He said, boy, if I had a little boy, he said, I'd dress him in the finest silk and give him a few more points.
Get him out of that place, huh?
But you and Mom didn't know each other at that point, when you were in the service, you hadn't met each other yet?
Let me see, I don't know.
So then you come on back then by boat again?
Yeah, we came back, we took about the same amount of time to come back as did you. I think it was about 11 days coming back. And we got along the eastern United States, and you could just see, we got in there. I don't know how long they was poking around for us to get a place to dock, I guess. And they were lights and lights and lights and lights all along the coast. I guess that was New York.
Blacked out for a long time, man. Had they been blacked out before?
I don't know, we couldn't see them till we got any close enough, and then,
Yeah.
well, I mean, that was really something, just nothing but lights. And we thought, boy, we'll be there by breakfast. We was there all night, all the next day before we ever got in. And then we landed in Staten Island, and they put us on the ferry, but I don't know, the Red Cross or the Salvation Army, they had donuts and some little pints of milk, white or chocolate, to pass out to all of us.
Well, if they were free, it was the Salvation Army.
It was free. Now, I don't, you're right, it's one of them, I don't know which one it was anymore, but the Bulls, they was out and they charged us for.
Yeah,
That was Red Cross.
Red Cross, they
And
charged.
they did that because the military made them do it. I think they said it was it Marshall? He said his troops got paid and they could afford to pay for what they got, so he demanded that the Red Cross.
Well, anyway, I
Charged
know
for
we
it.
had to pay for donuts and coffee
Yeah.
and milk up on the front lawns.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
You know, I had heard
Did
that
you get to
before.
call the war off for coffee break? This is my dime.
I heard that before, and I felt badly towards the Red Cross about that, but I'm
I never heard that.
glad to hear that maybe
Yeah,
that wasn't
not
the
too long
cause.
ago, they had a thing that said that the reason they'd done that, and then it had caused a lot of hard feelings for the Red
Uh-huh.
Cross with GIs, and they said
Well, I
that the
think it's
reason they
great.
charged is because Marshall made them charge.
Well, I can
Well,
understand that a little
idiot.
better then.
Then we landed in Staten Island, and that's where we had free coffee and donuts and milk. And then they put us on a ferry boat to go over to New York. And we crossed the Staten Island, across the Statue of Liberty on a ferry boat. And there's two black boys sitting on a bench right there, and that one says, "If you want to see me again, you're gonna have to turn around."
He's out of there, huh?
Then we crossed in front of the statue to get into the harbor, or to get off the ferry anyway.
That he wasn't coming back off of there, right?
Yeah. In other words, he's never going back that place again.
One experience. And you've
Then we
kept
caught
in touch with a lot of those guys over all these years too, haven't you?
a few of them.
That's good.
And
That's
then,
just tremendous.
I don't know, they put us in a camp, I don't know what the name of the camp was there anymore, and then we caught trains out to four of us caught trains down to Evansville. Charlie Case and Tom Crider and Paul Cook. Paul has Alzheimer's. No,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Parkinson.
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 And I get a card from him every Christmas. I used to get one from the lieutenant, and I don't know, he's got arthritis awful bad.
So once you got into Evansville, then did family come pick you up, or
He didn't have no
you
transportation.
had to hitchhike on to Ridgeway, or?
I went out to Aunt Niece and our cousin Connie Spindler were living together. Because niece was working over there.
At Evansville?
And my cousin was born and raised right there. And I stayed there I believe I stayed there that night, and Connie was working at a dry cleaner's, and she took my uniform down and dry cleaned it. And then I got on a bus and come back to Ridgeway. Come to
North City, wasn't it?
North City, and then had to thumb a ride in their home.
Did your family know you were coming home when you came?
They
Were they
didn't
expecting
know
you?
when or what day, but they knew war was
They
over.
knew you were on the way.
And they said that when the war was over, state trooper drove up and down the highway with his siren.
Blowing
on.
siren? Oh.
They knew it was over when they heard that. Well, that ought to be about the end of that one.
Probably so. You want me to go ahead, or you want to get the next one?
Well, let's see. Well, I told you I was drafted, not in, or enlisted. I was drafted.
Now, what were you doing during that war, Edna?
I was in high school.
In high school?
I graduated in 46.
46?
And then I went to Ridgeway. And that's where I met him. Then Uncle Joe's nephew,
Hubert.
Frum, was going with Sarah. What was Sarah's last name? Bowles.
Oh,
At that time. And he stopped by the farmhouse there that one day and said, "Would you be interested in dating someone?" And I said, "Sure, why not?"
Whatever you want to do.
Want to cut my hair?
He said, "Well, he said, well, I have a friend." He said, "I'd like for you to meet sometime but I wanted to ask you first." And I said, "Well, yeah, that'd be fine. I didn't know that many people. I just moved there. I thought that'd be kind of neat to get to know people." And so that's how I met Theodore Joseph.
Blind date.
Yeah,
They
they
hated
called
him right
him.
from the
I'd never
start.
seen him before. And
So where'd you
Hubert,
go?
Showed up with him, and I was gonna say something, I never now, I forgot what it was. And we went to a movie over at El Dorado.
You remember what the movie was?
No, don't remember that.
Did he
So
drive
it's
you over there?
Nicholas?
Well, in Hubert, we were in Hubert's car.
Hubert had a car,
Mhm.
or his folks had a car, and it was 35 Ford.
You guys were in the back seat by yourselves?
Yes.
Me and Hubert,
No.
And what did it cost to go to the show back then?
Oh, gosh.
probably a quarter, I guess, maybe.
So you could have,
Quarter piece.
you could have a big date for
$50.
$1 or $2.
They had to work
You,
two
you,
days
could-
to
you
get
could
it.
go, you could go to the show for a quarter and get a hamburger for a dime, I believe, and a Coke for a nickel.
But you had to work how long to get that much?
It was about
Probably all day. So
about
actually
the
it
same.
balanced out about the same, yeah. And that was kind of what we did on our dates, was we would go to the movie
What did you
and
see?
stop and get a hamburger and a Coke.
Do you remember what the movie was?
No, I don't remember the movie, but that we could drive from Ridgeway over to El Dorado
Then on
to the
Saturday,
movie theater.
Saturday nights,
Was it a talkie?
Yeah, it was a talkie,
Yeah, so I was gonna
right?
ask.
they had 3 movies in El Dorado at that time, Knox,
Was it Sting?
Did they-
Grand. I don't remember what the
Did they have that drive-in that's on the outside of town, or is it?
No,
No,
they
no,
didn't
that
have them in
was-
them days.
Okay, I didn't know when those came
I
about.
don't
then,
really remember either.
On Saturday nights, we would go to the Venus Club at the place, that's at Walson now, I believe it's called, or
It's the Holiday Inn.
Holiday Inn between
now.
El Dorado and Harrisburg. Used to be a night, young,
Oh, at Muddy.
Yeah, but
young kids would go there. And right down the road, little piece, there's a red barn there, and they call it
Foster's.
Foster's. And the older couples went there, but the real young ones went to.
Now see, by the time I was a teenager, the Red Barn was a teenage hangout.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so where you went, was that to dance?
Yeah. Yeah,
What was your
hell, they was a
favorite?
great thing.
Did
It's just
y'all
a
have-
one-story thing, and they sold drinks there.
No, you had to bring your own bottle,
No, it didn't.
because that was a dry community back then, huh?
Anyway,
It's still dry now.
Yeah, anyhow.
What's
you-
your, did you
Well,
have
I
a
didn't
favorite
know.
song or anything like that? A favorite song or
Not really.
favorite dance that you like to do?
Not
So
really.
once you met and you had your first date, did you still date other people?
No.
Or you never dated anybody else once you met each other?
Not after that.
And Mom, you
Love at
were
first
working,
sight.
right, in a grocery store
Well, just on Saturdays.
in
Just,
Ridgeway?
yeah, just for something to do. Another relative of Uncle Joe's ran the Kroger store there at Ridgeway. He wanted to know if I would like to work part-time, and I said, you know, same old
Yeah,
thing.
why not?
Sure, why not? I'm here. So it would be a place, you know, we kind of get away on Saturdays, so I'd work from Saturday morning to Saturday evening, you know,
Well, you got off about 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
Saturday.
when the store closed. Then
I'd
after.
go home, clean up, and go back in town, and I'd go down to the pool hall and shoot pool till Mom get off work.
Yeah.
To go to the show.
Well, now, were you working at Jack's then, or
Yeah.
what were you,
Mhm.
at the Sally's Yard?
I worked there when we got married.
I
I
think
got-
we met in August, early part of August.
I don't remember.
And you
Yeah,
got married
then
the
we-
following February?
And then we got engaged over Christmas. And,
A whirlwind, right?
yeah,
Well,
right.
I knew she was the one.
You ever
And
cut
so,
her hair?
no,
You have?
Did you get
Engaged over Christmas?
uh-huh.
We never knew that.
It's an anniversary today.
And then we got married in February the 10th,
Yeah.
and
1947?
1947. Mm-hmm.
Was it a nice day?
What was, I was
Snowing or-
17, no, I was 18 at that time,
And Dad?
So you didn't have your, well, you,
23 or 4. How old were you? 20?
47.
What, she was 17?
I was 18.
18?
Well,
So
it has to be
24.
24,
He's
25,
6
for
years
the
older than you.
service, and it's 22 or
Yeah, I
23.
think he was 24.
I was going
Oh, he
30,
was born in 22, and that was,
I was going 33 months.
he
47.
was almost 25.
That was 25.
He would have been 24, he'd been 25 that November, I guess.
so where'd you live after you got married? I mean, you didn't have your own house.
We lived in an apartment there
In Ridgeway?
in Ridgeway. I don't know, at the time we lived there, they didn't have street names, so I couldn't tell you what street it is. Right now, it's the main street that went through town, I know. And,
They got names down there, those streets.
yeah, now they've named, they have signs up, but I don't know one
Very
from
big
the other.
town.
But, I don't remember,
They fold 'em up.
we lived in that apartment several months, I think. It was a bedroom and a, kitchen was all. Bedroom, living room, and then a kitchen.
And a stairway come up.
You know,
To the
came up
kitchen.
to there. And there was no bathroom, we had to go to the outhouse.
Was it
And,
upstairs?
Uh-huh.
The outhouse? No,
I
it was
remember-
outside.
Is this right? I remember you talking about Uncle Peanut coming and shinnying up the
Yeah.
block and climbing in the window and sleeping in bed in the middle. He'd get in the middle of you two.
No, that was Randy.
Oh, okay.
Randy would sleep. But, anyhow,
Somebody get thrown out of the house.
we were in this apartment, and I guess we must been really sound sleepers, because we knew Peanut was, his brother Peanut, Aaron, was supposed to come in that night, but we went on the bed, thought we'd hear him knock or something, and we didn't. And the next morning, he was sleeping there in the apartment. It seems like, was he on the floor, or, I don't know where the heck he was. He wasn't in bed with us. And when we woke up, we couldn't believe he was there. We asked him how in the heck he got in. And there was a porch outside our, bedroom door there. Opened out on like a little balcony porch. And he'd shinned up the post and came in that door. But then Ted's sister, Dorothy, Aunt Dorothy, would come down and visit from Waukegan once a year. And Randy at that time was, you think about 8 years old?
Maybe, I don't know.
6, 8 years old, something like that. And he always wanted to go stay at Uncle Tito's, he called him. And so I took him, Dorothy didn't know whether I'd want to be bothered with him, And I said, oh, sure, that's fine. So we took him home with us, and we only had the one bed, so he'd sleep with us in bed. And they'd always tease him about going up and sleeping with that Edna. And he just grinned. Oh, shoot.
Dad, how did Uncle Peanut get his nickname?
Uncle Fred Drone called him Peanut. Peanut was, when he was little, he was real puny, like real skinny. And
So Uncle
and
Fred
Uncle
gave
Fred
him the
Drone called him
nickname.
Peanut. He would come over, and Uncle Fred and Grandpa had a steam engine and they called it a thrash machine, a separator, what they thrashed wheat. And then he also had another one they hauled clover and Mesopotania seed with. Then we had 2 big barns there at home, so they put 2 separators in the barn over the winter time, until he got ready to use it in the middle of summer. And he'd always come over, him and Clarence and Father Ray would come over and work on it, get things lined out for the harvest. And Peanut would go up there, or Aaron would go up there, and then they'd come down for dinner or something, and he got to call him Peanut, so everybody called him. So a lot of them don't know his name.
Well, a lot of people down there don't know your name.
Years ago.
So your dad had a thrashing machine?
No, his dad.
His dad
His
did?
dad and Uncle Fred.
So he used to do a lot of that for the community then, huh, for a lot of other people?
Oh, yeah, it was. And Dad always run the steam engine. He'd run from beginning to end, I guess.
Now, Dad, tell us, because I hear you mention, like Aunt Teresa, and I hear you mention names, but I can't tie together who they were or where they were in the family, so.
Aunt Marie Bell, she had one daughter.
It was be your dad's
My
sister.
dad's sister, or his youngest sister. She died, I don't know, was it during birth or what? But she didn't live very long anyway. And Aunt Tracy was the next. I don't know how.
That's your dad's sister also?
And she took Kathleen and raised her. And then Aunt Tracy had, how many kids she had?
I
About
remember several.
a bunch of them. She had a set of twins.
She married a Lawler. And
And
that's
Don't look at
Bud's
me.
mother. No.
Is everybody looking at you?
And see, Aunt Teresa and Aunt Maggie Frog, Sister Pellegrina, Sister Emma, Sister Gabriel. I think that's all the girls, and then there's the 4 boys, Dad and Uncle Leo and Uncle Fred and Uncle Will.
And Cletus, whom you all know, they used to call Spud, would be
First cousin.
Uncle
Fred's
Fred's
yeah,
boy.
Fred's boy.
He was the youngest.
And Teresa, his wife now, would have been Aunt Tracy's daughter. Yeah. Spud's first wife died, I think, of cancer, way back along the line there somewhere. I think they had 2 boys, but I don't know their names.
Yeah, Alan and Mike.
So I don't know who else you all would know that would be tied in
Well,
with that.
probably don't know any of them, I just hear the names come up, and I can never remember the relationship, but all those
Yeah.
were all direct nephews or nieces of your dad then, because your dad had a lot of brothers and sisters.
You and Cindy would probably remember, Angus Jones from the filling station.
Uh-huh.
That was Uncle Will's youngest boy. Uncle Will had 2 boys and 2 girls.
Was Grandpa the youngest or of the children?
No, he was
his-
youngest of the boys. I think maybe Aunt Tracy and Aunt Marie was the youngest, and I don't know where Dad and Aunt Tracy come in.
Then on your mother's side, I don't think
They
I
didn't know.
I knew any,
No.
very many of them.
Mom had a sister, Aunt Katie.
That lived at Evansville. I knew her.
I don't know whether the other girls or not.
That would be Cooney's mom.
And then they had Uncle George, Uncle Charlie, Uncle Nick. I guess that was all the boys.
And they all farmed down around Ridgeway?
No, the Gables, I don't know what,
They're from over in
they
Indiana
were
somewhere.
around Indiana.
Well, how did
Yeah,
Grandma and
Lizzie.
Grandpa, do you know how Grandma and Grandpa met? Your mom and dad?
No, I really don't.
Might have been when your dad was at school.
No,
No, that would have been an all-boys school. I don't know. I have no idea.
So Cindy was conceived somewhere between the kitchen and the outhouse and the Main Street Bridgeway, huh?
We don't wanna know that it was on the kitchen table or anything like that.
Let's not get too personal here.
But before me, there was a miscarriage, right?
Yes, right.
Oh, I didn't know that. And you said Grandma Drone buried it out on the farm.
Somewhere on the farm. Yeah. It was just a little teensy-weensy. I think she put it in a little, one of those little petty matchboxes or something. So I don't know where it was buried, but she buried it. Baptized and buried it. Let's see. What time of day we got married? It was on a Monday in the morning. I think it was 9 o'clock, wasn't it?
and cold,
And cold day.
but it was clear.
And it was
Yeah,
sunny.
it was dusty. It
It
was,
was Sunday,
Monday.
Monday,
Monday, Sunday.
sunny.
One sunny Monday.
Well, did you get married in a church?
Yeah.
St. Joseph's and Uncle Fina in Aberdeen.
yeah.
I didn't know
Our
they had,
attendance.
I thought weddings were always on Saturday for some reason. I
No,
didn't know
they
they
could
did
be
on
any-
other days of the week.
It could be any day of the week.
So how come you wasn't working on Monday?
Yeah.
I guess you took the day off.
Getting married.
Took the day off to get married?
That we got a 3-day weekend instead of just a 2-day.
Oh, and another thing you wanna know about working at Farm Bureau, when I quit working at the garage and salvage yard, I worked for oil management. It was a Jew boy outfit out of St. Louis. And I think I got 75 cents an hour for eight hours a day, and that's all. You didn't get work any more than that. And then Indiana Farm Bureau bought out oil management, and I went to $2 and a dime an hour. And we
All right.
we were really in the money.
You're in
And then
high
about-
over, wasn't you?
About every 6 months or so, we'd get a raise, but I don't know how much the raise was. But Carl Cowser and I went with the production to Farm Bureau, and they started us out the same wages they were paying their old employees for pumping. And then Farm Bureau, so I worked them 16.5 years. And they sold out to some Royal Coal or something down at Grayville. And they wanted us all to go to work, but they wanted us all to take a cut. And Buck Casper tried to get me to go to work for him. I said, no, I believe I can find something better than that, what they're paying. And I was relief pumping, and at the time, I worked 2 days at Schroet Station, 2 days at Allendale, and 1 day up at Bird's. And I was working at Schroet Station, and I come home. I'd always come home for dinner when I was out there, because it was only 6 miles from home. Edna said, Bernard called and said they hired a couple, and said he went back and checked, and I hadn't put my application in yet. And so I went
At Snap-on.
at Snap-on. So I went out at dinner time. On my way back out, and went down and put my application in, and Ruth Garrett, you know her,
My grade eight.
she gave me a slip of paper and said, you take this out to the hospital and get you a, I don't know,
Physical?
chest or back, I mean a chest x-ray for lungs and things. And she said, you told me it's for Snap-on, said, it don't cost you nothing, said, then they'll send it back to us.
So now how did you know Bernard at this time?
Bernard Kiefer.
Yeah, well, when we moved here, Mom, Louise Kiefer and Louise Peters and Joe and Louise Peters and Jerry Kiefer wanted Mom to take charge of the girls' 4-H out of St. Mary's. And they all had girls, our 2 girls' age, and Mom took over, and that's why I got acquainted with Bernard and Joe Peters. Anyhow, when I started working down there at Snap-on, I still was a buddy with Bernard.
Okay.
And that's the way we got acquainted, I guess.
So you got your x-ray.
I got my x-ray, and I took it back out to Ruth, and she sent me to Oral Harris, and I told her Oral, you know, that Ruth had the papers. I guess she took him some papers too. And he said, you go to work tomorrow evening at 3 o'clock. Well, and it must not been that day, but the next day, because I know I was off 1 day from the time I got away from Indian
Yeah,
Farm
the
Bureau
time
until I went to work at Snap-on.
And this
So he was
was
unemployed
in
one day.
60
I was unemployed 1 day, and I worked 18.5 years for,
That was in
Snap-on.
69?
huh?
Was it 69?
Yeah. I think it was
68, 69, right in
68,
there.
we were in Maryland. It was
We were in
68.
Maryland? Okay, 68.
Mhm.
I remember it was when first year we were in Germany or when we were in Maryland. So when you left Ridgeway, you were working for Farm Bureau then.
Yeah,
Then you went to
Florida.
Florida.
Was up there 13 months. And then from there, they moved the district headquarters, that was District 3, and they moved their headquarters down here to Mount Carmel. And we were down here one time doing some roustabout work in the summertime, and I got back to Florida. I told Edna, I said, boy, I hope we never have to live in Mount Carmel. She said, why? I said, well, people down there wearing hats with bales on to keep the mosquitoes off. If you go to the store, you just stomp, keep the mosquitoes off of you.
Worst year mosquitoes ever had.
Next thing we knew, here we were.
Play with all, huh?
Yeah, you'd go into the store, like supply store there, and oh, well, that's the one they had. Well, they had that one out there where you guys had your business. So.
Yeah, we studied them.
Look, we always went to Orwell here. And man, you get in there and you just stomp, keep the mosquitoes off your legs.
Must have
One
been a
of
big
those bad years.
flood that year or something.
Uh-huh,
Had a lot of
I
probably.
don't know whether it was or
Not like
not, but
this
I know
year.
the mosquitoes was really bad.
Survived them.
And I guess that's the end of that.
Then you moved down Mount Carmel.
Yeah,
You lived
Yeah.
down on Fifth Street.
I guess.
Ed and I were we at Florida? And we went across Ernie and,
Yeah.
no, we got to
Yeah.
work for Phillips.
Ernie and Roy
Robert and his wife.
and Jenny. I think
And
was
he said, here you guys is moving to Florida. And we hadn't heard a thing about it yet. And he worked for Phillips Oil Company, and they was connected right to our our production. And so when it was right vacation time, because we moved while I was on vacation,
Oh, that was here to Mount Carmel.
yeah, from Florida down to Mount Carmel.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, did the company pay for that?
Yeah,
The
they
moving
paid
van
for
or
all of
whatever?
it, packing it and all.
But they let you do it on your vacation.
And I lost my days too.
Yeah.
But that all come about Casper.
Uh.
Barney,
Scratch that.
Barney and I was roused about, and we come down there and cleaned their house before they moved from Florida down here. And it was charged to the least.
Barney.
Barrett.
Barrett.
And Jim Stricker and I, we picked pheasants 2 days.